Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Thomas. Today we're back here with How to Beat. Today's How to Beat is How to Beat the Creature of the Night in the last voyage of the Demeter. So, I actually did look this up. Apparently this is just all in one chapter. You know, of Dracula. Anyway, Bram Stoker's Dracula. So, this is basically how Dracula went from Transylvania to, well, England. Actually kind of curious to see how the voyage went from this point of view. Not sure how well the movie did, but we just stop on in and see what happened to the crew. I mean, they've been torn apart, but I guess we're about to get more detail into it, huh? So, let's check it out. Be sure to like, subscribe for more. Hope you enjoy. Let's go.
If you were stuck in the middle of the ocean with an ancient vampire trying to feast on your blood, what would you do? There's something evil lurking below deck, and when darkness falls, nobody is safe. Grab your garlic, because I'm here to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat Dracula in The Last Voyage of the Demeter. There's about to be blood in the water, but this time it's fangs, not jaws, that you need to be afraid of. It's 1897, and this huge wooden ship, the Demeter, has been hired to transport a mysterious cargo of 50 large crates from Romania to London. Before leaving, they need to recruit 3 more sailors, and the first mate, VOYAGE, goes to the nearby tavern to look for some fresh meat. That's where he runs into Englishman Mr. Clemens, a highly educated doctor and astronomer wishing to join the crew, but decides to take on some more experienced hands instead. Suspicious of why the man seems to be in such a rush to return back to his home country. Back at the dock, the Romanian locals who brought the crates to port refuse to help the crew load them onto the ship, ominously insisting that they need to leave before sundown and wishing the men good luck. While hoisting one of the crates up, this old man zones out when he sees the image of a black dragon painted onto its side, causing it to fall and nearly crush the captain's grandson, a young boy named Toby. Luckily, Clemens is still watching from the sidelines and tackles the kid out of harm's way just in time. The man rushes off the boat, saying that the dragon is bad news and shouting warnings about the devil's serpent. This leaves the Demeter with an unexpected job opening, and Clemens here is finally invited to join up. But that was his biggest mistake. Once they're safely out to sea, Toby takes Clemens for a tour of the ship, introducing him to their dog, Huck, and the other livestock down in the cargo hold. In the gallery, they meet up with Joseph, a religious man who works as the ship's cook. Later that night, the men are gathered around the dinner table, discussing what they'll do with their fat stacks of coins. Just then, a huge wave rocks the boat, causing something in the hold to crash. Clemens sends Toby to get the captain while he goes to see what fell, and that's when he finds something that they never could have expected. One of the crates has busted open, dumping a huge mound of dirt onto the floor. It's strange, but what's even more concerning is what he finds buried inside. A pale, semi-conscious young woman, barely able to breathe, but somehow still clinging to life. Rushing her upstairs, Clemens lays the woman out on a table and determines that she'll need blood transfusions if she's going to live. Despite the crew wanting to dump her in the ocean like they would with any other stowaway, the captain agrees to let her stay on the—
Yeah, that whole dumping her into the ocean, which I'm not too sure if she's a victim of one of Dracula's brides, which is part of the story, if I remember correctly. Anyway, so, yeah, that old tradition, if you guys remember Aunt Bonnie, the pirates, and I'm guessing, in this case, sailors, were pretty much, well, the sea is gonna get mad if we keep this lady on board. Toss her off. Which, harsh, I gotta say. Yeesh. I mean, in this situation, I don't think I would do that, like, as, like, a good guy. I think I would just, like, whoa. We're not pirates. We're not tossing her overboard. Let's just get her treated, see what's going on here. I mean, hey, there's gotta be a reason why she was in that crate, right? Anyway.
The condition that Clemens alone will be responsible for her survival. Once he's able to get her stabilized, they place the woman in a temporary room until she fully recovers, and Clemens leaves Toby to watch over her, warning him to yell if the others give them any trouble. They don't realize it yet, but trouble is already aboard, and their worst nightmare is about to begin. We want to break in here really quickly to cover something
Hi, Simper.
incredibly important when it comes to survival in any situation. I'm talking, of course, about smelling your best. If some of these victims were smelling incredible, would the killer even attack them in the first place? I'm gonna go ahead and say 100% no. They're a monthly subscription service with over 600 perfumes and colognes. I'm talking heavy hitters like Gucci, Prada, and Versace, as well as indie labels like Skylar, Heretic, and Confessions of Rebel. The best part? Every month you get to pick what you want to receive, so there are no surprises showing up at your door. This week I'm rocking a scent called Ember from Joseph Abad. It's described as a seductive essence of burning incense embers blended with other spicy notes. But I also dig Good Habit, a warm and comforting fragrance that reminds me to take a moment and prioritize my inner peace, which is nice when I'm beating all of these villains. Use my coupon HowToBeat for 55% off at Scentbird. At just a little bit over $7 for your first month, it's available in the USA and Canada starting now. Thanks to Scentbird for sponsoring this video, and check out the links below.
Anyway, back to the ship.
This crew needs to be careful. They might think that the appearance of this suspiciously bloodless woman is nothing but a coincidence, but the truth is that they're about to be neck deep in trouble. The first warning signs started all the way back on the dock, before they even set sail on the high seas. Wojciech here was busy questioning why Clemens wanted to return to England so badly, when what should have caught his attention was the actions of the locals. Not only did the workers who transported the crates refuse to stay anywhere near them past sundown, but they happily paid the crew of the ship more than they were paid to do the job just to get them out of town as quickly as possible. And then there's the one-eyed man who completely flipped out the moment that he saw the image of the dragon painted on the cargo. Not 20 minutes earlier, this man was practically begging to get on the crew, but once he realized what they'd be transporting, his entire attitude changed to that of a guy standing on the corner wearing a sign that says, "The end is near." From his ragged clothes and eagerness to take on a potentially dangerous job like working on a sailboat, it's safe to assume that he wouldn't have passed up the opportunity unless he wholeheartedly believed that whatever was in those boxes would mean death for them all. And although they might think that he's crazy right now, it's probably wise to consider what could have provoked that kind of reaction, and maybe double check the manifest for any red flags before starting the journey. Which brings us to our stowaway with the unexplainable illness. Since the woman clearly needed medical attention, or else she'd die, Clemens' first priority was to focus on treating her condition. But as the man in charge, what Captain Elliot needed to do here was immediately send some of his crew to check the rest of the crates for any more unwelcome surprises. After all, why the hell would any sane person stick a comatose woman into a crate, cover her in dirt, and ship her all the way from Romania to England in the first place? That's suspicious to say the least, and for me, it'd be more than enough of a reason to open up every box on board and see what else is stashed inside. Finally, while Clemens here is providing the woman with medical attention, he should examine the rest of her body for any indications of what could have caused her condition. Not only would this help him get a better idea for the treatment that she needs, but he'd also find several suspiciously mouth-shaped wounds on her neck. Even still, this isn't yet definitive proof of a vampire being on board for anyone who prefers more logical explanation, but the warning signs would certainly be adding up. Then they might have had a chance to turn the ship around and dump the cargo back at the port before it was too late. But now that
honestly, if I was on that ship and I saw all this, like, the guy just runs off, like, was one, eager to go, and then all of a sudden, like, nope, I'm out of here. Yeah, honestly, as soon as I saw that lady, I would be like, dump that cargo in the ocean. This ain't worth it. Like, seriously, like, I'm pretty sure I would have dumped the whole thing into the ocean, because I'm good. Like, I ain't trusted that. Like, get the crew, dump it in the ocean, just keep sailing to England. Though I would keep an eye out for the lady, because, well, you know. Then again, I wouldn't know about the vampires, but I don't know. Sometimes it's better just to dump them, just check. I think the crew actually had the best idea. Like, normally, I would be a guy that's like, okay, let's just check her over to make sure. But as soon as I saw a bite mark, like, stabbed her to the stake, or at least knowing what's going on. But yeah, as soon as I saw that, I would be like, dump the cargo, find any mark that freaked them out, find those dragons, get them off the ship right now. Like, seriously, that is not good. Like, sheesh. I don't know about bringing it back to Romania, because they were eager to get rid of it. So, like I said, just dump it in the ocean, because I ain't dealing with that shit.
Night is falling, and they're already far from civilization.
Yep.
It's time for their nocturnal guest to make his first move. As he's looking out over the sea, this sailor, Olgarin, notices a strange demonic creature staring back at him from across the ship. Clemens sees it too, but by the time that he ties off the helm and goes to investigate, both his crewmate and the shadowy figure have completely disappeared. Suddenly, Olgarin grabs him by the shoulder, convinced that something inhuman has gotten on board. Meanwhile, down in the hold, Joseph trips over something large, hidden by the darkness. It's Huck, or what's left of him, with he and all of the livestock having been torn to shreds as if by some bloodthirsty beast. As the crew examines the bodies, some of them try to place the blame on the injured woman, saying that her presence there brings bad luck. Searching for a more logical explanation, Clemens argues that it must have been a case of rabies.
And see, there's no such thing as logic.
To attack
Sorry.
the other animals. Although the marks on the bodies seem to tell a different story. In the morning, the men take the animals' bodies and throw them all overboard, and things are steadily taking a turn for the worse. The weather is rough. The woman hasn't gotten any better. Food and morale are running low, and the voyage is still far from over. While checking up on the woman, Clemens learns from the boy that her name is Anna. According to him, she seems to be having bad dreams, and keeps repeating the word feed over and over again in her sleep. Late that night, this sailor Petrovsky hears a loud crash while on watch and goes to find out what happened. Searching around the deck, he notices that something strong has busted straight through one of the hatch covers from down below. Although the culprit is nowhere in sight, that's when he hears a strange groaning noise from just around the corner and sees a pale, hairless figure crawling out from the shadows. Confused, he draws his knife and leans in for a closer look, when suddenly the creature lunges towards him, slashing his throat wide open with one swift move. As he lays on the ground, quickly bleeding out, the creature holds him down and sinks its teeth into his neck, draining the blood from his wound before dragging him off to continue feeding somewhere out of sight. By daylight, the men find the damage and suspect that Petrovsky must have fallen overboard, but Clemens here isn't so sure. He points out that a drunken fall wouldn't explain all of the blood, and that every one of the dead animals had gruesome bite marks on their necks, thinking that somehow the killings could all be related. That's when Anna finally wakes up, immediately rushing over to the crew and shouting that they need to get off of the boat right away. She's completely hysterical, and Clemens has to restrain her until she can calm down, but the uncertainty is already getting to the men, with no one being sure exactly what they should believe. While Clemens takes care of the woman, she explains that they're being systematically targeted by an evil creature who her people call Dracula. He's something between a man and an animal, and has lived in a castle high up in the mountains for hundreds of years, only coming out at night to feed on his innocent victims. The elders offer him sacrifices in order to keep the rest of the community safe, which is how she came to be under his control, revealing several scars all over her body from where he's drained her blood. Petrovsky was one of the first men to meet Dracula face to face, and now that the creature is loose and growing stronger, it's only a matter of time before they all share the same fate. Okay, things are officially getting real. They're already down one sailor, plus a whole voyage worth of chicken nuggets, and if they don't figure out what's going on soon, there's no telling who they'll lose next. After finding the dead dog and livestock, Clemens figures that the most logical cause must have been a rabies outbreak. While this makes sense on the surface,
but
when you
affect
really
the
start
dog,
to look at the details of the attack
dog
more
still
closely,
dead?
the explanation doesn't quite add up. Rabies symptoms include hydrophobia, which means a fear of water, sudden violent outbursts, confusion, and vomiting, among others, which Puck here wasn't showing any signs of before the incident.
Yeah,
Chances
nothing.
are you already know Dracula. Romanian folklore tells of similar beings called strigoi, although they were more phantom or beast than man. The well-dressed vampire that we know today came about in the early 1800s when ancient folktales gained widespread popularity, causing mass hysteria across Europe. To ward off these thirsty undead, herbs like garlic or sacred items such as holy water were often used. When more drastic measures were necessary, people would stake the heart of a suspected vampire with a wooden or metal stick and resort to the decapitation or even complete incineration if no other method proved successful. So, if you're ever trapped on a ship with one like Clemens here, at least you'll know what to do if you managed to survive the night, that is. For the rest of the crew, it's time to get serious. I'd want to start with arming everyone with garlic if there was any on board, holy objects like crucifixes, and wooden stakes to finish the job. Since he only hunts at night, this also means that he must go somewhere to hide or sleep during the day. The enormous hole in the hatch cover indicates that he must have come up out of the hold, which is yet another reason to thoroughly search below deck, especially in those crates, to see if they can catch him while he's snoozing. The crew should grill Anna for as much information as she knows about the creature, specifically any abilities or weaknesses that he has. Later, the woman ends up confessing that she and Dracula share a psychic connection from the repeated feedings. But if Clemens could figure this out ahead of time, then he could use this knowledge to their advantage. In the original novel, one of Dracula's victims, a woman named Mina, also shares such a connection with the vampire, which Professor Van Helsing uses to track the creature.
Yeah, I think it was because Dracula fed her the blood,
Clemens
not feed
managed
on her.
to learn this secret, then he might be able to use the same trick with Anna to find what crate Dracula's hiding in during the day, or to keep track of his location when he's hunting them down by night. For now though, they can only work with the knowledge that they have, and it won't be long before the vampire claims his next victim. That night.
Yeah, again, I think I would have just told the crew, but like, well, we got an evil on board, dump the cargo. Like, seriously, the fact that it ate the animals, we got a lady here claiming it's Dracula, and what's been going on back at port? Yeah, I would have been like, okay, let's just dump this stuff and just keep going to London, okay? Like, I don't know, without how deep the ocean is, I doubt Dracula's gonna get out of that ocean anytime soon, you know? Just saying, I don't think he can survive long. Actually, how long could Dracula survive without blood? Kind of curious, because like I said, depending on where you're like dumping in the ocean between like Romania and there, like as soon as it was like big like ocean, like the gap between, I think I would have just dumped him right down there, because the ocean's pretty deep. And hey, if the starvation didn't kill him, the pressure would. Considering like he could get the bends, and I don't think Dracula could breathe underwater. So, like I said, actually getting the psychic message could work. So, talk to him, talk to her, see which crate he's in, just dump him overboard. You know, easy enough, right? Anyway.
While out on watch, this sailor Abrams struggles to light a lantern in the pelting rain, having no idea that Dracula is already stalking him from the shadows. Just then, he hears several knocks on the ship's hull, which the crew use to signal each other when there's trouble. Olgarin hears it too, and comes to check it out, but when Abrams says that it wasn't him knocking, both men draw their knives, afraid that whatever took Petrovsky is about to come for them. Suddenly, the vampire leaps down from one of the masts, landing directly on top of Abrams and repeatedly slamming his face into the deck. Seeing this happen, Olgarin tries climbing up the mast to safety, but the creature quickly closes in behind him, mocking his cries for help as it smiles at him with a mouth full of massive fangs. Sometime later, the others wake up as the ship is battered by the high waves and immediately notice that nobody is manning the helm. After getting things back under control, they search the deck looking for the missing men, only to find Olgarin motionless and bleeding high up among the rigging. He's still alive, although driven mad by what he's seen, and with the same horrific bite marks on his neck. The men restrain Olgarin to a table while Clemens tends to his wounds, finally coming to the realization that they're all being hunted down, one at a time. To keep them safe, the captain orders that they arm themselves, work as teams of 2 for every watch, and begin searching the ship from top to bottom. By sunset, the men start to worry. They haven't found any sign of the creature, and know that there isn't much time before it returns. The captain joins them up on the deck, leaving Toby in his quarters with the door locked where he thinks that the boy should be safe. Just then, the injured man begins convulsing wildly, and his eyes glaze over white as he falls under the vampire's control. Hearing a noise, Toby decides to check it out, making his way through a jammed door and into the hold where he finds Olgarin up and walking. At first, it seems like good news, but as the man leans forward and grabs his shoulder, Toby realizes too late that something is horribly wrong. Grabbing him by the collar, Olgarin begins dragging the boy deeper into the shadows. Luckily, he manages to escape when his coat tears off, squeezing through the door and locking himself back in the captain's quarters just in time. Still coming after him, Olgarin begins slamming the door with his head, bashing a hole straight through as the boy takes cover under a table. Hearing the commotion, Clemens hurries down to see what's going on, and Olgarin immediately attacks, with the other sailors rushing in to hold him back. Although help is right outside, Toby suddenly realizes that infected crewmates are about to be the least of his worries. There, crouched in darkness in the corner of the room, is Dracula himself. The men see the creature through the hole in the door, but are powerless to help unless they can somehow get through. Unfortunately, it's already too late, and the vampire lifts Toby off of his feet, sinking its teeth into his neck and feeding on his blood. Thinking quickly, Hannah shoots out the lock with a rifle, but by the time that they get to the boy, he's barely clinging to life, and Dracula is nowhere in sight. All that the captain can do is give him blood and pray, but the outlook isn't good, and there's still a long way to go. Okay, talk about a tough break. Losing a few surly sailors is one thing, but this poor kid deserved better. I hate to kick you while you're down, but somebody's gotta say it. Captain Elliot, you dumb. First off, Toby did seem like he was having fun playing sailor, you know, right up until he got chomped on by a giant demonic bat creature. What made you think that it was a good idea to have your grandson on board in the first place? You should be the first to know that sailing is an incredibly dangerous job, even without bloodthirsty ghouls lurking below deck. The list of reasons to not have an 8-year-old kid on the crew is as long as it is painfully obvious. Although, now there's no telling if any of you will make it back alive. But the bad decisions didn't end there. Remember how those guys back in Romania were so eager to get rid of the crates that they practically pushed the boat out to sea themselves? Bit of a red flag, don't you think? And then there was the livestock with awfully suspicious bite wounds. Oh, and not to mention the friggin' lady falling out of the box, looking paler than a ghost and with not enough blood left in her to feed a tick. They're called warning signs, man, and you might want to start picking up on them a little bit earlier. Think about it. Who's the creature most likely to go after here? A group of heavily armed men wanting to kill it, or the helpless, terrified kid? Let's face it, Captain, you've made some bad calls, and there's no Grandfather of the Year award coming your way, I'm afraid. When your mistakes lead your own grandson to becoming a snack pack for the king vampire himself, Captain Elliot, you up. The men tie Olgarin to the mast while they try to figure out what's gotten into him. But at sunrise, he instantly bursts into flames, leaving Wojciech with no choice but to put him out of his misery. As they regroup below deck, Joseph points out the horrifying truth. Whatever infected Olgarin must also be affecting the boy, meaning that Toby will be the next to turn. Clemens reluctantly agrees that it only makes sense, but believes that they may be able to cure him if they can find the vampire before it's too late. Wojciech argues that they're running out of men to keep watch, and can't afford to lose any more while they're hunting the creature down.
Just dump the cargo. The money ain't worth it.
Clemens decides that he's going to search the crates. Anna here insists on coming along, and the two start by grabbing some firearms. Clemens pries open crate after crate, only to find nothing but dirt inside. Eventually, they come to the one that stands out from all of the others. with the seal of the dragon set into its cover. Clemens can't manage to get it open, but that's when Anna discovers a secret mechanism hidden within the metal cap on one of its corners. After opening all of the locks, the two ready themselves before throwing off the lid. Inside, they find still more of the maggot-ridden soil, along with an ornate cane decorated with the head of a wolf. Although Dracula is already gone, Anna correctly points out that this must be where he sleeps. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. They might not know it yet, but finding Dracula's resting place is one of the most essential parts of defeating him. And if they use this discovery to their advantage, then they'll have a massive leg up in the next battle. First though, let's discuss what happened with Olgarin. No one could have expected him to burst into flames as soon as the sunlight hit. But if they reacted more quickly, all that they'd have to do was throw a large blanket or some other cloth over him to smother the flames. Since Dracula seems to only attack at night, it stands to reason that if the vampire himself were to somehow be exposed to the sun, then the same thing should happen to him. So finding a way to use the daylight against him would be a critical move in the fight going forward. They could try destroying the crate so that he has nowhere to hide from the sunlight, or ambushing him when he goes for it, since they know that's where he'll be returning to every morning. With a battle plan in place, the only thing that's left to figure out is how to save the boy. Clemens here doesn't know it, but he's absolutely right. Killing Dracula would lift the curse from Toby. And it's actually the only way to stop him from turning into one of the undead. He'll need to act quickly though, because there's no telling how much longer that the boy will last. Meanwhile, Abrams is on...
Yeah, honestly, jeez. Again, I'm just saying, dumped it in the ocean, but probably would have done it during the day, you know. Grab Dracula's coffin, like, he's got to come back to it, because I'm not sure he knows we know, but hey, sometimes it's better just to make sure. You know, just get him in, dump out, in the sun, bada boom, bada bing. Burnt zombie, or in this case, burnt vampire. Though, if I couldn't, I'd probably just dump him into the ocean, because, well, you know, better in the ocean, since, you know, not sure if he wants to stick around. And remember, it's gonna be a few hundred years before people can dive that down deep, you know? I think. Sorry, I'm just trying to remember, but still. Anyway.
On watch when he's suddenly knocked unconscious by Joseph. After tying off the helm, he quietly lowers one of the lifeboats and paddles off on his own into the foggy sea. He doesn't make it far before he hears the steady beating of enormous wings from somewhere in the sky above. Horrified, he begins to pray for his life, but that's when Dracula lands on the boat right behind him, grinning ear to ear at this easy meal. By the time that the lifeboat floats back to the ship, there's nothing left of Joseph but puddles of his blood. Despite their best efforts, Toby passes away that very night, unable to pull through no matter what they tried. In the morning, Clemens informs the captain that they've wrapped the boy's body in a sheet and are prepared to bury him at sea. Anna steps forward and says a few words, but just as they're about to send him overboard, the captain becomes convinced that he saw the boy moving. Pushing the men aside, he reaches down and pulls open the covering to take one last look. The boy's eyes shoot open. Grabbing onto his wrists, he pulls himself up and immediately bursts into flame, screaming in pain and badly burning the captain along with him.
Shit.
Clemens throws the boy into the water and his body descends below the surface, finally free from the vampire's curse. There's only one day left before they reach London, but if they want to make it there alive, then it's time to come up with a plan. Wojciech wants to barricade themselves in the cabin and wait it out, convinced that they can use their guns to hold the vampire off if they need to. Anna, however, points out that the creature isn't afraid of their weapons and can easily kill them all at once. The only reason that it hasn't already is because it wanted to keep them alive to feed on. But with the harbor quickly approaching, their usefulness is about to run out. This leaves them with just one option: kill the vampire by setting a trap and sinking the Demeter before it makes landfall. Furious at the thought of losing his ship, Wojciech reluctantly agrees, but only on the condition that when the time comes, he's going to be the one to do it. As night closes in, the crew quickly gets to work making the necessary preparations. Then, using Anna as bait, they're going to blast Dracula with a rifle shot from the crow's nest before sinking the ship, dipping out of there on the remaining lifeboat and sending his creepy ass down to Davy Jones's locker. With their preparations complete, all that's left to do is check in with the captain. When Clemens tells him that they plan to abandon ship, he draws a revolver and confesses that he's been hearing Dracula's voice in his head. The creature has promised him that it will give Toby back, but only if he can successfully bring the ship to shore. Just when he's about to fire, Anna steps in and he slowly turns the revolver on her as if he's become possessed. Unafraid, she closes the distance and warns him that the vampire is only using Toby's memory as a method of manipulation, convincing him to lay his weapon down and take back control of his own mind. Still, the captain won't abandon his ship and says that instead he'll sail it as far out to sea as he can, so that when it sinks, Dracula will never be able to reach London and claim another innocent victim. Okay, this is a solid plan, but if they really want to make sure that Dracula never strikes again, then they'll need to do things the hard way and confirm the kill. Dracula may be incredibly powerful, but he is not altogether impervious to physical attack. You see, in the novel, Dracula is finally defeated when he's simultaneously decapitated and staked through the heart, which causes him to crumble into dust. Of course, there's no way for Clemens and crew to know
remember,
these
this is
exact
before
details, but
he
common
reaches
sense
London,
says
so
that
they don't know.
decapitation almost always does the trick. And if they're already planning to lure the vampire into a trap and wound him, then why not take the opportunity to really finish the job? Before the fight starts, one of the men needs to arm themselves with an axe, while another prepares several large stakes from any sharp wood or metal that they have available. Then, once Dracula's wounded and they're ready to make their escape, cut that sucker's head off and stab him straight in his decrepit old heart, sending him right back to the hell where he belongs. It's risky, but there's also no guarantee that their original plan will work, and at least this way, they'll either kill him off for good or die trying. Since they're most likely going to end up dead anyway, now would be the time to pull out all the stops. It's time for the final showdown, and the crew has one last shot to stop Dracula before he reaches shore, saving countless future victims if they can get the job done. That night, the crew lays in wait for the creature to show up, with the shores of England appearing just on the edge of the horizon. An otherworldly fog envelops the boat, creeping over the decks, and making it all but impossible to see even a few feet ahead. Worried, Clemens tells Anna to hide below deck with the captain, but the woman explains that she and Dracula share a psychic bond after so many years together. He'll come for her no matter where she tries to hide, so her only choice is to stand her ground and end things once and for all. Sure enough, the creature emerges from its resting place, silently stalking them from the edges of the mist. However, something isn't right, and Anna can sense that he's aware of their trap. Suddenly, it grabs onto the rope tied around Abram's waist, pulling him out of the crow's nest and slicing his throat mid-air, leaving his lifeless body dangling from the rigging. Panicking, Wojciech begins to climb back down to the deck, but stops when he hears the sound of the creature's wings circling around him. At first, there's nothing but an eerie stillness until Dracula lunges out of the fog and knocks him off of the rope, sending him crashing down into the hold. He's still alive, but his leg is completely shattered, and the creature is closing in. Knowing that this is most likely the end of the line, Wojciech shouts up to Clemens to prepare the lifeboat and begins making a hole in the ship. While he's focused on his efforts, Dracula sneaks up from behind and grabs him, plunging its fangs into his neck. It's a death blow, but he's already done his job, and now the water is steadily rushing in. With the lifeboat prepared, Clemens rushes in to find him, but the man is dead by the time that he arrives. Grabbing the axe, he circles back to evacuate the captain, who's made his way up to the helm, determined to go down with his ship. As Dracula appears in front of him, he holds up his grandson's rosary necklace in a last act of defiance, but the creature only grins, biting him as it did to the rest of the crew and leaving him there to die. Clemens arrives, finding the captain only moments away from death, and the man makes him promise to tell the world that he went out like a true G before finally succumbing to his injuries. Ready for the final showdown, Clemens shouts into the storm, calling Dracula out, saying that he's only mortal and afraid of death, just like any of his victims. That's when the vampire appears on the roof behind him, spreading its wings with an inhuman shriek as it lunges forward and sends him flying down to the deck below, his axe landing just out of reach. Just when he's about to finish the job, Anna sneaks up from behind and fires a shot straight into Dracula's shoulder, drawing his attention long enough for Clemens to escape. She loads the rifle and takes aim again, but this time the creature flies towards her and knocks the weapon out of her hands. Defenseless, she can't do anything but scream as Dracula grabs her in his wings. But now it's Clemens' turn to return the favor, plunging the axe into his back and grabbing Anna as they rush toward the lifeboat. It's a good try, but before they can get in the water, the creature grabs Clemens by the neck and hoists him into the air, cutting the side of his neck with its sharp fingernail and preparing to deliver the killing blow. At the last moment, Anna cuts one of the ropes, sending part of the mast crashing down and pinning Dracula in place as she and Clemens leap from the ship into the stormy sea. From a lighthouse on the shore, the keeper sees the ship approaching land and tells his son to run for the local authorities. As the ship crashes to shore, Dracula manages to get himself free from the trap, flying off into the night, and now exactly where he wanted to be. Okay, I guess that didn't work out. Clemens and Anna may have escaped, but the entire city of London is about to become the creature's nocturnal playground. And the worst part is that they were so close to victory. If only Clemens hadn't made one fatal mistake. You see, when Clemens saved Anna, he probably thought that he was doing the right thing. But what he doesn't realize is that going out of his way to rescue her, instead of just bailing when he had the chance, is actually what ended up saving Dracula himself and dooming the citizens of London in the process. Clemens doesn't know this, but one of the ways to kill a vampire is to allow it to feed off of a woman of pure heart, which will distract it for long enough that it will forget to seek shelter from the morning sun. In the vampire hunting business, I believe this is what they call a thirst trap. This means that if Clemens had made the selfish call and fled the boat, leaving Anna here to her fate, then there's a damn good chance that it would have ended Dracula as well without him even needing to lift a finger. Since she'd been bitten, then logically speaking, it was only a matter of time before Anna herself turned, just like Olgarin and Toby, meaning that saving her without completely killing Dracula first was, at best, useless, and at worst, a missed opportunity. And that right there is why we never pass up a chance to use a meat shield, folks. Because you never know when sacrificing someone could end up saving countless others. Clemens was determined to save her life, but it turns out that that was his biggest mistake. Now they're stranded at sea, and Dracula's free to prowl the streets of London, feeding on the innocent until someone comes along to finish the job. The morning sun rises on Clemens and Anna still clinging to the mast. They're nearly safe, but unfortunately, only one of them is going to make it to England alive. As Anna turns to face him, Clemens sees that her eyes have turned pure white, showing that she's finally succumbing to the vampire's infection herself. The transfusions only delayed her transformation, and now she's ready to let go, choosing to end things on her own terms rather than continue living under the creature's spell. Pushing herself away, Anna faces the rising sun and ignites in flames. Sometime later, Clemens finally arrives in London, with the newspapers reporting that the ship was found with no survivors. He's determined to hunt the creature down. While asking for some information in a local tavern, Clemens hears someone knocking on the wooden floorboards and turns to see a shadowy figure wrapped in a dark hat and overcoat. It's Dracula, disguising himself as a man, and he brushes Clemens' neck with his claw as he silently disappears through the front door. Following him out into the city, Clemens pursues him in a foggy alley,
Careful, Clement.
vowing to finally slay the vampire and send him back to hell. Thanks to Scentbird for...
Yeah, I don't know if I would just go after him, because frankly, you don't know anything yet, still. I'm just saying. Also, I think I would have just gone after, you know... I don't know. Still would have tried to figure out something, but honestly, this would have saved them a lot of headaches if they just dumped the bodies. Or at least the, the crates, because let's be real, it wasn't worth it, Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Till next time, like, subscribe for more. See ya.